This is Learn from Others, where we interview a cross-section of successful individuals so you can learn from their experiences, achievements, and even their mistakes. We ask 4 questions that will educate and inspire. Greg Stanley will be your guide as we join our guest on a journey from adolescent daydreaming to success in today's world. Join us on this adventure as we learn from others together.
Welcome to Learn from Others. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, Stuart Thaman. Stuart, thank you for taking us on your career journey.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah. Well, before we find out what you're doing today, let's start at the very beginning. And what did you want to be when you grew up?
So my family history typically is military service. So I looked up to my grandpa a lot growing up. Really wanted to join the military or work for the government in some aspect when I was growing up. Unfortunately, those plans were cut really short in high school because I broke my elbow, and the break there required a couple surgeries to fix, and couldn't join the military on account of medical reasons from that perspective. But that was always the goal pretty much until I was 16 and broke my arm. I was always military service or work for the government.
That's impressive. What did your grandfather do? What kind of career history did he have in the military?
And so he was in the 8th Air Force in World War II, so he spoke German, actually barely spoke any English. He's from, well, nobody really knows exactly where he was born because most of the documents were destroyed when they came over to the United States, but he was a sort of immigrant fleeing between World War I and World War II, and his family going back behind him was also military, and so the natural thing to do when he got to the U.S. was sign up on our side of the war. Fought in World War II as a bombardier in the 8th Air Force, and then ended up making a career out of it in private contracting for military companies like Lockheed Martin and a few others doing logistics work.
So how did that affect you when you weren't able to go down that path? And I'm honestly thinking about Forrest Gump, the movie, because you had Colonel Dane or Colonel whoever was in there. His friend that couldn't pursue the military because he lost his legs, and he was generation after generation after generation after generation. Sounds like you. How'd you cope with not being able to pursue a military path?
I'll be honest, it was pretty tough. I mean, that's all I'd ever planned on. That's all my parents had ever planned on for me as well. It was something that I had talked about since I was little, and something that I'd been actively pursuing. The only colleges I visited in high school were Virginia Military Institute, University of the Marine Corps, and the Citadel. And so I'd only gone to those 3 because that was my choice. It was going to be, coming down to which one offered me the best scholarships and where would I, go to school based in those 3. And then I found out in February of my senior year of high school that I wouldn't be allowed to go to a military college. So it was rather crippling at the time, definitely. One of my good friends at the time ended up telling me about a school called Hillsdale College that specialized in politics, and that's what I wanted my degree to be in. And I looked into the school in Hillsdale and applied that very same day that she told me about it, and ended up going there for my undergrad degree and really, really liked it. And that honestly turned it around. So it was a pretty dark time, to be honest with you, for maybe 6 months or so. And I started Hillsdale, really liked it there, was studying exactly what I wanted to learn. Everybody at Hillsdale, it's a very strange school. Most people have never heard of it. It's really bizarre in a lot of aspects, but everybody there pretty much is a poli-sci major. It's one of the only things they really teach in bulk, and that's the kind of environment I really wanted. And it was a good replacement for me, I think, a very good replacement for the military lifestyle that I wanted.
Well, and I do have to correct myself. It was Lieutenant Dan, right?
Yes,
Lieutenant Dan. Okay. I don't want people to get all upset with me about saying the wrong thing. So, well, that's quite a moment there. It takes you, 6 months of depression or darkness, losing your path.
My entire life's path, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing that you're able to make that transition, and then you found your footing, it sounds like, during college, which is great.
Yeah, I got lucky. Honestly, it was just so lucky that my friend had heard about Hillsdale, because I had never heard of it before. It's a school the college is smaller than my high school, and I had never heard about it, and I did some research. It looked like the exact kind of place that I would want to go, and it panned out to be just that.
That's fantastic. That's great. Well, what was your first job that you ever had?
So my first job I ever had, worked at a printing press in high school for about 5 years. So they printed mostly advertising. I worked in the finishing department there, so putting the last touches, so not actually a press guy or anything like that, but worked in the cutting department a lot, so cutting the advertisements apart into their constituent components, in the gluing department every now and then, but mostly in the finishing area where there'd be a big assembly line kind of thing. We'd have like 9 million parts coming down the line, and you have to pack a certain number of, 15 different components into each box in a way that makes sense, that kind of stuff. Pretty boring, menial labor kind of thing, but good for high school student.
Good for a high school student, right?
Yep.
Well, what was your
Flexible hours? Yep.
right? What was your first job in either college or outside of college?
So afterwards, after college, after undergrad, my first job was teaching. So it was well, actually, my first job was in corporate translation, but that only lasted about 6 months, and the company went out of business. So I did a little bit of corporate translation, German to English, English to German. Doing that, translating mostly conversations between people in the chemical industry. Is also extremely boring.
I was about to say that
Yeah.
doesn't seem too thrilling.
Yeah, when you tell people you work in translation, most people think, oh, it's some glamorous job and it's super cool and everything. And it's like, no, this is extremely boring. Walking outside with people into the rain and the cold while they smoke cigarettes and translating their conversation for them. A strange service that you wouldn't think there'd be much demand for. And to that, I would say there's a reason the company went out of business. It lasted about 6 months, and then I got a job teaching German, and been doing that ever since.
So you told us a little bit about your past now. What are you doing today? And if you would kind of walk us through your journey to get there.
Yeah, so I started teaching from just getting a call because I knew a principal at a high school, knew him through some other contacts, and he knew I spoke German. Needed a German teacher, got hired there. I have no teaching degree at all, no real qualifications, to be honest, other than I speak the language. Now I'm teaching German psychology, philosophy, and economics for them, so a lot of different aspects there from my various studies. And then I'm also working because I'm in law school at night now, in my third year of law school, so I have an internship, a job with the Kentucky Public Defender's Office in the Department of Capital Post-Correction or Post-Conviction. So it's only death penalty cases, and one of the 4 interns for the office right now. They've got, I'm actually not sure how many attorneys they have, but I work directly under one attorney who's one of the lead attorneys for every capital case after the trial phase. So he's only post-conviction. So after the trial phase is concluded, most of the cases will be sent to him and one other partner attorney, and then the 4 of us interns work on those cases as well.
So tell me a little bit about that and the way your eyes have been open to the death penalty and the folks you're dealing with and what they're going through.
Interesting thing, most people have absolutely no idea how the death penalty even works in any state, especially in Kentucky here. A lot of people associate Kentucky with the South, and the South stereotypically has a lot of death penalties. We actually in Kentucky have not executed anyone since 1960. It's not really a thing that's done in Kentucky, but we do have a lot of people sentenced to death here. So we do actually have one of the largest death rows in pretty much the whole United States. We just don't really use it ever, which I guess is a testament to my office. Who knows? But the concept of the death penalty, a lot of it, and personally, I honestly, and maybe this is bad to say, but I really don't care. The criminals, at least the people I represent, are extremely guilty. They've done exactly what the courts have decided they have done. In my opinion, life in prison without parole versus the death penalty is functionally no different. For me as a member of society, it is irrelevant if they live or die. But I do like being involved in the process because I get to see how the entire process works. And there's so many misconceptions out there about the death penalty and how it operates and things like that, and so many just intricacies and legal puzzles to solve that I'm really attracted to. So I like it a lot for the academic aspect of figuring out the legal issues revolving around these cases and putting all the puzzle pieces together and trying to make something happen out of it. And ultimately, at least for me personally, the goal is to get the death warrant revoked. Like I said, not because I have some, enmity toward the death penalty itself, or I want these people to go free. I definitely do not. They're pretty bad people. But just because if it gets resolved, it will stop costing the state money. And that would be a good thing in my perspective.
Are there a few things you can mention that would give some insight? You mentioned how you don't think a lot of folks know how the death penalty works. Just a couple maybe things you could provide us to and give us a little bit of insight of what you're meaning by that would...
Yeah, so most of the time the standard argument in support of the death penalty is usually that it's cheaper. And you don't have to keep someone alive for, 85 years getting medical care and food and housing, et cetera, et cetera. in the prison system. It's never true. It's never been the case. The death penalty is always more expensive, and it's simply because of lawyers' fees. So if you think one of the client that I currently represent now had his sentenced to death, his death warrant was signed in 1986. So he's been on death row for however many years that is. It's been more than I've been alive.
Right.
So that guy's been, living on death row for, 32 years now, I guess. 32 years getting medical care and all that. And then the biggest difference is, so everybody's familiar with the public defender's office. When you're accused of a crime, you're entitled to public defense as per the Constitution. And then a death row, someone convicted of a capital crime. So whether they've been convicted or not, if they are accused of a capital crime, if the prosecutor's office is going to seek the death penalty, then that convicted or allegedly, criminal is entitled to two public defenders. And the public defenders come from the capital convictions unit, not from your standard run-of-the-mill public defense outfit. And so they're usually more expensive, and you, of course, have two of them. And so it's extremely expensive for the state to bear that burden. And then their appeals process, whereas the normal murder conviction, that trial and appeals process might last anywhere from 6 months to maybe 3 years. In a capital case, it's going to go on for anywhere from 30 to 100 years until the person dies of natural causes. So the appeals process is extremely long, and you have two attorneys the entire time, and both attorneys are typically going to be on the expensive side. And so it's a massive cost to the state, and just that's the way our system works. And that's not going to change at all. It's never going to get easier to execute people. It will only become more difficult. And that's something that a lot of people they have no reason to ever learn that information. And it's very eye-opening.
Right. No, thanks for providing that type of insight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's one of the more challenging and one of the more rewarding aspects of your job?
Rewarding, it's a tough one to say. Honestly, for me, I like the academic side. That's what I'm really drawn to, is I really like looking at somebody who's extremely guilty, remorseless killer with multiple murders on their plate, and thinking, where do we appeal this case? And it's a case that was prosecuted well and prosecuted accurately, and you have to be the one to sit there and think, okay, let's go through all of this with, a fine-tooth comb, a metal detector, everything, and figure out where the prosecution either left us a hole, where the state law left us a hole, where new decisions that have come down from the U.S. Supreme Court left us a gap that we can wiggle into. And it's really, for me, I'm a big riddle guy. I love riddles and puzzles and all sorts of that kind of stuff. And for me, it's a giant puzzle and a massive riddle. And it's the highest stakes riddle you can get, right? Because if you get it wrong, your client's going to die. And so it's a high stakes riddle, and that's the rewarding part for me. The challenging part is also the exact same thing. It's extremely challenging and preposterously high stress, and just every aspect about it is very, very difficult. And you've got to parse through, in many cases, 40 years of legislative history, of judicial history, and of your client's history to try to figure out some answers. And that is extremely time consuming.
So the cases you're working on, they've already been convicted, and this is the appeal process?
Yeah, so I only do the post-convictions, so capital appeals.
And how many times can they go through the appeal process?
Oh, I don't know if there's a limit. Someone has a record somewhere, I'm sure. Like I said, the two clients that I have right now, one was sentenced to death in 1986. The other was sentenced to death in 1983. So they've been going on. I was born in 1990, so these guys have both been on death row for at least 6 years before I was born. I'm 28 now, so you can imagine just how long a time that is. And there's really a limitless number of appeals. Now, each issue you can only appeal a certain amount, and you could typically appeal it to the state Supreme Court, appeal it to federal court, and try to get some sort of petition signed to the U.S. Supreme Court and get a cert petition there. And so you really have maybe 3 or 4 shots to get each issue itself addressed, but new issues come up frequently, especially as the law changes. New issues will develop. All sorts of other, things happen over time with the judicial history as well, where the court will come down with a new precedent and then we have to look at the case and see how that precedent affects the current case. That sort of aspect of looking at it changes very frequently, and the number of appeals they can have is almost limitless.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Hence the expense, too.
Right, right. Well, before we move on to our next question, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Do you enjoy your job and find it fulfilling? Or do you spend more time wondering what if instead of what's next? If so, contact Career Spa. Career Spa has extensive programs and curriculum and understands the challenges faced by individuals in transition. They can teach these success practices to be mastered for an effective job search. Answer that what if question by contacting Career Spa and asking their experts, what's next? Contact Career Spa at careerspa.net. Talent acquisition is key to building a successful organization. Talent Connections is a professional services firm that specializes in recruiting, including executive search, contract recruiting, talent acquisition consulting, and recruitment process outsourcing. Whether you are an individual or a Fortune 100 company, Talent Connections can connect you with success. Contact them at talentconnections.net. Welcome back. We just learned what you wanted to be when you grew up and what you actually do today. So if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Probably wouldn't have ever started wrestling in high school, so just so I could go to the military.
Right.
Yeah, that still is working for the military and the government still is sort of my life goal. And I would definitely want to do that, though honestly, I would want to do an ROTC program through Hillsdale College probably. Because I did really, really love Hillsdale. I loved my undergrad. Absolutely wonderful college. Can't say enough about them. But I do still have that, desire in the back of my mind for military service and sort of take up the family mantle kind of idea. I would probably do that differently. And then most certainly, if I did pursue the law route again in a second time through, I would have gone to law school directly after undergrad. So I took 2 years off between undergrad and law school now, or actually 3 years, I think. Yeah, 3 years off. That sounds right. It's difficult to go back to school as a 28-year-old. It's challenging. It's kind of a pain.
Right. Now, speaking of which, what advice would you give someone who wants to do what you're doing, and what is a typical career path?
Yeah, so of course, everything in law is hyper competitive. A lot of people, I think, understand that concept pretty well. It's all extremely competitive, and it really starts when you're in high school. You need to be going to a decent high school, and then even within that high school, you need to be ranked very well. And that rank within your high school, based on your GPA and everything, will help you get into a top-tier undergrad. Undergrad needs to be something, well, it doesn't need to be, but it probably should be something related to either law or history, or it'll just make it more difficult when you get to law school. And then, of course, everything hyper competitive, taking the LSAT as an undergrad, studying a lot for that, getting to law school, being prepared there, and then everything in law school is based off your class rank. So if you're near the bottom of the class in class rank, then you're probably not going to get any sort of decent job out of college, out of law school. Those top tier jobs go to all the top tier students, and you got to be in the top 10 of your class and all that. So very competitive, and a lot of people don't realize that, and really, in every job, that the decisions you make in high school will follow you around for the rest of your life. And you have to be learning and actively trying to make yourself better every single moment, even beginning in high school. And so many people just glide right through high school, and they get to college, figure they'll learn everything they need to know when they get their job, and so they glide through college, and then they get their job and they're not happy with it. So you have to really start extremely early and start pursuing an academic career if that's what you want.
Now, what is some of the best career advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received probably actually was a piece of writing advice that applies to really all aspects of life, to be honest. I'm trying to think of who told it to me, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Chris Fox. Might have been him that I was talking to. But one of the authors that I know that I was talking to is probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was asking how they wrote so prolifically, and they told me that the number one thing you can do to make sure that you keep your writing numbers high is to throw your phone in the ocean. And of course, that's a bit of hyperbole, but it makes sense. If you can remove distractions from your environment, you'll achieve stuff every single day. And that's kind of my personal motto, is to always be improving in some aspect, whether it means improving some skill that I'm working on, which is all sorts of random stuff all across the board. So improving some skill, writing, working on law, studying, anything, as long as every single day has some sort of academic benefit to it, then I consider that to be a fulfilling day. And the sort of throwing your phone in the ocean concept really encapsulates that pretty well. It's just that the whole idea and mindset of removing distractions from your life, and especially in today's day and age, that's extremely difficult to do. It really is. If you can figure it out, you'll go places for sure.
That is so correct. I mean, my nieces turned me on to Cat Condo like 6 months ago, and I'm like, why am I playing Cat Condo again? This is a waste of time.
Yep.
Well,
And
are there
it's
any
not to say you don't need entertainment. You just
Right.
got to figure out when.
right? And you gotta unplug every once in a while and de-stress a little bit every once in a while.
Exactly.
So, well, are there any current projects you're working on that you would like our listeners to know about?
Yeah, so right now, obviously, I don't think any listeners out there could really follow the legal developments because they're usually pretty slow in happening. But I do write books. I've got a bunch of fantasy novels out at stuartthamanbooks.com. You can check them all out there. And right now, working on book 2 of the Kill Streak series. So Kill Streak book 1 just came out in June, I think it was. Yeah, June sounds right. And that's a lit RPG, so epic fantasy where the characters earn experience points and level up, and it's kind of like reading a tabletop role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons.
That sounds
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah, book 2 of that will probably be out in the wintertime. So far, the series is going extremely well. Book 1 was an Audible bestseller, top 100, pretty much since the day it came out on Audible. The book itself has been my best release to date. So very popular, really fun stuff, a lot of fun to read, a lot of fun to write. Book 2 should be out, I would imagine, hopefully mid-December or so, right around Christmas time probably. But that one's a lot of fun, and I've got a bunch of other really cool projects and writing stuff and different series going on. You can check it all out at stuartthamanbooks.com and pick yourself up a free novel there too.
Now, how many issues or episodes are there in this series that you're working on?
Kill Streak, so the first one is out. There will be a total, I'm thinking, of either 7 or 8. So I've got it planned out to 8 right now, but we'll see how that goes as I get further into it. And then other novels I've written, I have, I think, 13 novels in publication right now. I counted them up a couple weeks ago, and I think that's accurate. It's kind of hard to keep track of everything as you start to get in the 10-plus range.
You must have thrown your phone into the ocean at some point.
A little bit, yeah. So, I mean, that advice of just really sitting down to do it, and that's what I do every day. And some days I don't write, I just take notes and plan my novels. Other days I do stuff that's not even related at all to writing. I'm currently learning Dutch online, that kind of stuff. So every single day, doing something with my brain to improve myself and to become simply better. And that, I mean, that's resulted in now, 13 novels too. So a lot of stuff. And it's just a little bit here and there, an hour a day or something, and you'll achieve any goal you set.
Well, one thing that takes up a lot of space in my brain are cool cars. So,
Yep.
as with most journeys, success largely depends on reliable transportation, and so I'd like to pick out a cool classic car for you. What was your first car?
So my first car was actually a car that I never got to drive. So I got a Jeep Liberty when I was 16. My mom really liked Jeeps. My brother had a Jeep before that. And my mom bought me a Jeep Liberty when I turned 16. And then I broke my arm and I wasn't able to drive for 2 years because I was in rehab, therapy, all that kind of stuff for my elbow. And she ended up selling it before I ever got a chance to sit behind the wheel. So kind of depressing.
That is depressing.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. But I got a Nissan Rogue after that, and I currently have my third Nissan Rogue in my driveway right now.
Well, those are very nice. Those
I
Rogues
like
are
those
very nice.
cars. Yeah, it's a perfect
Yeah.
size, drives well. Mine right now is bright orange, and I like that.
Well, what is your dream car?
Yeah, so my dream car, I really do like that Tucker 48. I would roll with that if I could just have any car. Those are, I know they go for some ungodly selling price. It's got to be millions of dollars because I've only made like 50 of them, and I just love the design with 3 headlights. I think that's so cool. But if I could have any reasonable car that I could, potentially one day afford, I really do like Tesla. I like everything they make, and I'd probably go for one of those. And then my mom has a 1986 300ZX, and I really like that car too, but I have to learn how to drive stick. And right now, that is not one of the skills I have.
Well, props on the Tucker 48. That is an amazing car.
They're just so cool looking.
Yeah, they have a helicopter in the rear for an engine. They have the 3 headlights. The center one, I think the outer ones turn or the center one turns.
I think the center one actually turns with the steering wheel. Like, what other car does that? Like, that's crazy. It's so cool.
Right, and it was so forward thinking at the time. There's actually, I think, 3 of them at the American Antique Automobile.
Wow.
I can't remember the name of it, but it's in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and they have engines and stuff. That is an amazing car. They're about $3 million now, unfortunately.
I would imagine. Yeah, my guess is over $1 million. So, geez. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever own one because, I looked up. They made apparently 51 of them completed.
Right,
so
right.
I can't imagine all 51 have even survived. And they've got to have, if maybe 40 of them have survived, that's a market there.
So this might sound a little off at first. It's not actually a classic car, but I picked you a 2011 Mazda Miata. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with...
one up. I don't know Mazdas that well, except my friend has a Mazda 3.
Okay. Well, the Miata, the reason I picked this one is it is the best driving car in the history of the world. I mean, it beats out Ferraris and Lamborghinis. I figured as a death row lawyer, you need some fun and excitement. And
I'm looking at a picture right now, and it actually looks really cool.
Well, they're actually smiling in the old ones, So
yeah.
One of the top automotive journalists gave it 5 out of 5 stars. He said, the only reason I'm giving it 5 stars is because I can't give it 14. So from a driving perspective, they're a lot of fun. So I figured you would need that. And that particular year, because it comes with a hard top convertible. So the soft tops, the crazy killers can come after you if they want to. Hard top.
That's true.
You're protected, So
yeah, it's a good way to think of it.
It's something to zip around and have some fun with when you're not dealing with all these stressful life and death situations. So that's the car I chose for you. Hopefully you will enjoy it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, thank you so much for taking us on your journey today. What's the best way our listeners can learn more about you or your company? I know you mentioned your website.
Yeah, Stuart Thaman Books is the best. You can find me on Instagram. I think it's just at Stuart Thaman Books. Twitter, probably the same thing, Stuart Thaman Books. I am, according to the IRS, the only Stuart Thaman with my spelling in the United States. So if you type that into any search engine, you know what you're going to get. It's just going to be me.
Well, thank you for taking us on your career journey today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for listening to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. Where will our next adventure take us? Subscribe to find out. If you know of someone who has a cool career story or occupation, contact Greg through Instagram at Greg Stanley LFO. That's GregStanley LFO. And we will see you soon as we learn from others together.